You faked your law degree. Neil Gorsuch's words exploded through the Capitol chamber like a gunshot, slamming into Jasmine Crockett as 25 million Americans watched live. Gasps ricocheted off the marble walls, pens dropped, hearts pounded, and the room froze in a storm of disbelief. What could Jasmine possibly do next to turn this brutal attack by a Supreme Court justice into a moment that could shake the entire nation? The winter morning in Washington, D.C., cut through coats and scarves, but Jasmine Crockett climbed the Capitol steps like nothing could touch her. The marble glistened under pale sunlight, each step echoing like a drumbeat. Today was no ordinary day. Supporters lined the sidewalks, holding placards that trembled in their hands. Justice for all. Our voices matter. Some shouted her name. Key. Others just stared, wide-eyed, sensing something huge was about to happen. Jasmine's eyes scanned the crowd, calm but unyielding. Her jaw was set, every movement deliberate. She carried the weight of millions of Americans watching, hoping, judging. Across the plaza, a sleek black car rolled to a stop. Neil Gorsuch stepped out, expression carved in stone, flanked by aides shifting nervously under dozens of cameras. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some nodded respectfully at the Supreme Court justice. Others tilted their heads with suspicion. The tension was thick, electric. Jasmine adjusted her coat against the chill. 25 million Americans were watching live, hearts pounding with anticipation. Time seemed to stretch. Every second, every heartbeat, felt like it could shatter the silence. And then it hit everyone like a bolt. What could possibly push a Supreme Court justice to break decorum and go on the attack? Jasmine had fought battles that made headlines and shook the system. She stood up for minority homeowners crushed by predatory lenders, turned the tide for protesters risking arrests, and pushed through local policing reforms that actually protected communities. Each victory left her stronger, but also marked her as a target for those who saw change as a threat. Neil Gorsuch had his own record, the kind that made headlines for different reasons. Recent rulings weakened tenant protections, sided with corporations accused of workplace discrimination, and drew scorn from advocates who called him the justice of the elite. Every decision he made seemed to underline a system tilted toward power, money, and influence. Now, the Capitol steps would be their stage, the clash of these two worlds exploding in front of millions. Jasmine's courage and grit faced Gorsuch's cold precision. One fought for the powerless, the other interpreted the Constitution in ways critics said favored the elite. The tension wasn't just political. It was personal, raw, and impossible to ignore. Cameras cut to commentators pacing in studios, fingers drumming on desks, eyes wide. They're going to tear into each other, one said. This isn't a hearing. It's a showdown. On screens across the country, live polls blinked. Who do you trust more? Hearts raced as viewers chose sides, and the air seemed to crackle with anticipation. Every breath Jasmine took felt like preparation. Every step Gorsuch made seemed like a challenge. America wasn't just watching. They were holding their breath, waiting to see whose justice would dominate. The hearing room smelled of polished marble and tension. Senators shifted in their seats, whispering to aides, while cameras hovered above, capturing every twitch of expression. The press gallery buzzed, electric with anticipation, every lens trained on the Capitol's newest showdown. Angela, a single mother Jasmine had once defended, sat quietly in the corner, eyes flicking between Jasmine and Gorsuch, hope and fear clashing in her gaze. In the front row, Elizabeth Warren crossed her arms, jaw tight, prepared to react to every word. A moderate Republican senator fidgeted nervously, clearly uncomfortable under the weight of the moment. Jasmine slid into her seat opposite Gorsuch, posture straight, calm on the surface but alert, every muscle ready, their eyes locked for a moment, silent yet sharp, a battle raging before a single word. The tension wrapped around the room like a thick, invisible cord. The first questions were polite, almost ceremonial, about judicial independence, but every sentence carried hidden digs, subtle ideological jabs. Gorsuch's voice stayed steady, precise, but beneath the calm there was a warning. Something sharp was coming. Jasmine gripped her pen tighter, knuckles white, ready for the moment that could change everything. The air seemed to vibrate with anticipation, thick and unyielding, like the calm before a storm. Every heartbeat felt louder, every second heavier. Will she survive the blow everyone fears is about to land? Jasmine leaned into her question about the controversial eviction ruling, voice steady, eyes locked on Gorsuch. His jaw tightened, a subtle twitch betraying his calm exterior. Then, without warning, he leaned forward, close to the microphone, and his words cut through the chamber like a knife. "You faked your law degree." A wave of gasps rippled through the audience. Senators exchanged uneasy glances, murmurs bouncing off the marble walls. Hili, cameras swung instantly, zooming in on every reaction. Angela's eyes went wide, disbelief written across her face. Warren leaned forward, fists clenched on her knees, ready to erupt at any second. The room froze. Every heartbeat seemed to echo, every inhale drawn sharp. Jasmine didn't blink. Her eyes locked on his, sharp and unyielding, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth. "Say that again." "Under oath," she shot back, her voice low but carrying through every corner of the chamber. Gorsuch's gaze held her for a long, unbearable moment. His voice remained calm, but the venom in his words lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. The rules of decorum had shattered, leaving only raw confrontation, the kind that could make history or destroy reputations. Every person in the room felt it. The tension, the disbelief, the electricity of a moment no one would forget. Cameras rolled, capturing the silence that followed, heavy and relentless. Could Jasmine withstand this attack and turn the tide before the chamber swallowed her whole? The moment Gorsuch's words hit, the world outside exploded. Split screens on every network showed social media feeds burning with activity. Fake degree trending, millions of reactions flooding in, some defending Jasmine, others attacking her. News anchors stumbled over their words, scrambling to fill airtime, while legal experts debated whether decorum had been shattered beyond repair. Inside the chamber, Jasmine remained composed, calm on the surface. She lifted a glass of water, sipped slowly, shuffled her notes, every movement deliberate. Her eyes scanned the room, locking briefly on Angela's worried gaze, searching for the silent reassurance that her fight wasn't hers alone. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, as whispers and camera clicks echoed around her. Senators fidgeted, aides leaned closer to their phones, and the public waited with bated breath. Every second dragged like a lifetime, yet Jasmine's mind raced, mapping her next move, analyzing every angle. She knew the counterstrike couldn't be impulsive. It had to land hard, precise, surgical, the kind of strike that would not just defend her, but expose the audacity of the attack. Every muscle tightened, her grip on the pen reaffirming her control, her determination radiating in the tense silence. Outside, our millions were watching, their emotions swinging from outrage to empathy, fear to hope. Jasmine could feel the weight of the nation's eyes on her, but she drew strength from it. Could she turn this public storm into a weapon, striking back before Gorsuch could regain control? Jasmine cleared her throat and asked for a short recess. Murmurs rippled through the chamber like a low hum, senators leaning back, aides exchanging nervous glances. Every eye seemed glued to her, waiting to see if the storm had broken her, or if it was only just beginning. In the hallway, Warren leaned in, voice low but firm. "Make him regret it, but make it count." Jasmine's lips pressed together, a flicker of determination igniting in her eyes. The words weren't just encouragement. They were fuel for the fire that had been smoldering since Gorsuch's attack. Back at her table, Jasmine opened her laptop with deliberate precision. Files, precedents, transcripts, and evidence flashed on the screen, each document a weapon in her growing arsenal. Her fingers moved with quiet fury, almost a dance of vengeance disguised as preparation, every click sharpening her focus, every note a calculated step toward her counterattack. She returned to the hearing room, her walk steady, shoulders squared, head high. There was a defiance in the way she moved, a silent warning that the battlefield had shifted. Cameras caught her every step, capturing a woman in control, a woman who would not be intimidated. Gorsuch, oblivious to the storm brewing across the table, smirked, leaning back as if the last word had been his. The tension in the room thickened, a visible electricity crackling between them. What weapon could Jasmine wield against one of the most powerful men in America? And would it land with enough force to shatter his composure? Jasmine's voice cut through the tense silence, calm but carrying weight. "I'd like to introduce someone to the court." Every head turned as she rose, her movements deliberate, unshakable. She strode toward the public seating, hand resting reassuringly on Angela's trembling shoulder, a silent signal that they faced this together. Angela's story spilled into the room like a tidal wave. She had received an eviction notice while battling cancer, every moment a fight not just for her health, but for the roof over her head. Jasmine's legal battle had overturned the precedent Gorsuch had supported, a decision that now felt like justice delayed, but not denied. Jasmine stopped before the bench, eyes locking with Gorsuch's, the air thick with electricity. She almost lost everything. "Because of your decision." The words landed like a hammer, reverberating through the chamber. Gorsuch's smirk faltered for the briefest second, a crack in his composure. Angela rose slowly, documents in hand, her voice trembling but resolute. The courtroom murmured, a mix of shock and empathy washing over senators and aides alike. Every camera zoomed in, capturing the human face of a legal battle, the stakes no longer abstract but painfully real. The tension was almost unbearable, a fragile balance of power hanging in the air. Jasmine's gaze never wavered, every second stretched as if daring Gorsuch to react. Could a single story, one woman's struggle, ignite a reckoning that even the Supreme Court couldn't ignore? Gorsuch's voice cut through the room like a steel blade. "My duty is to constitutional interpretation, not emotion," he said, each word deliberate, sharp. His eyes scanned the room, daring anyone to challenge him, but Jasmine didn't flinch. She leaned forward, calm but razor-sharp. "Constitutional protections exist for life, liberty, and property, not just for corporations," she snapped, her words striking like lightning. Selective reading may protect the elite, but it leaves the vulnerable to suffer." Senators shifted uneasily in their seats, whispers threading through the chamber. Elizabeth Warren's presence added weight to the moment. She leaned slightly toward Jasmine, a subtle nod, reinforcing the argument that justice wasn't just about law. It was about morality. The tension tightened, like every heartbeat echoed off the marble walls. Angela clutched her papers tighter, eyes wide, feeling the room's energy, the collision of principles. Every camera zoomed in on Jasmine's steady gaze and Gorsuch's rigid posture. The spectators on TV screens nationwide caught the storm building in real time, sensing this was more than a legal debate. It was a reckoning. The air practically crackled with electricity. Some senators whispered agreement, others scowled in disapproval, a courtroom split in its very soul. Jasmine's voice didn't waver. "When justice ignores humanity, we all pay the price." A single phrase, but it hung over the room like a thunderclap. For the first time, Gorsuch hesitated, a flicker of doubt passing his stoic mask. Could one woman's courage, armed only with truth and law, shake the moral foundation of the highest court in America? Jasmine's voice rang out, sharp and unyielding. "If defending her makes my degree fake, Then I'll wear that title with pride, she declared, each word hitting the room like a hammer. For a moment, the hall went silent, holding its breath, then stunned applause erupted, echoing off the marble walls. The moderator's gavel tried to restore order, but the energy was unstoppable. Angela sat frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks. Calm, relief, awe, and gratitude fought for space in her eyes. Supporters whispered encouragement, some standing, their voices trembling with raw emotion. Cameras captured every glance, every gasp, every heartbeat, broadcasting it lived to the nation. Gorsuch's jaw tightened, eyes narrowing. The attack had gone beyond law. It was personal now. Pride, integrity, power, all on the line. Senators shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tide of opinion turning. Even the usually calm front-row Republicans exchanged wary glances. A moderate Republican leaned to a colleague, whispering, "He just lost the room." The words hung in the air, carrying farther than anyone expected. Every look from Gorsuch to Jasmine now crackled with tension, electric and palpable. Jasmine held her gaze, steady and unflinching. Momentum had clearly shifted, and the air felt charged with anticipation. Could one brave stand, one sharp rebuttal, shake the grip of a Supreme Court justice on power? The question lingered, heavy and impossible to ignore, as millions watched, hearts pounding. Jasmine's fingers moved across her laptop, and the screen behind her lit up with faces. Veterans clutching medals, single mothers holding babies, teens who'd been wrongfully accused, and elderly neighbors facing eviction stared back at the room. Each photo carried weight, a silent testimony to lives shaped by the law. The air felt tense, charged with anticipation. Captions flashed beneath each image. "Still in my home, back with my family. Justice served." Whispers rippled through the gallery. Eyes widened, some brimming with unshed tears, others narrowing with anger. Each life represented a battle fought, a fear overcome, a system challenged. Jasmine spoke, her voice calm but fierce. "This is what law looks like in real life," she said. She highlighted a veteran almost evicted, a mother nearly torn from her children, a teen whose future was almost stolen. Every story landed like a punch, drawing gasps and shifting bodies in seats. Senators and reporters leaned in, caught between disbelief and awe. Gorsuch's expression stiffened, the faint smirk vanishing. The courtroom was no longer just a place of debate. It had become a gallery of accountability. The faces on the screen demanded attention, demanded answers. You could feel the balance of power tilting, subtle but undeniable. Jasmine's gaze swept the room, landing on Angela, trembling but resolute, and then locked with Gorsuch's. Silence thickened, heavy and suffocating. This wasn't theory or politics anymore. This was confrontation, reckoning, and the room knew it. Every life on that wall demanded justice, and everyone felt the tension crackle in the air. Gorsuch straightened in his chair, voice tight, trying to claw back control. "Precedent guides us," he said, "not emotions." His hand hovered over notes, shaking slightly. But the room had already shifted. The weight of Jasmine's evidence pressed on him like a physical force. Jasmine leaned forward, eyes sharp. "It's called representing the people who pay your salary," she snapped, voice calm but cutting. A murmur ran through the gallery. The simple truth landed harder than any legal jargon could. Senators glanced at each other, caught between protocol and the undeniable sting of her words. Camera lenses tracked every reaction. Some reporters scribbled frantically. Pundits fumbled to fill airtime, unable to spin the moment away. Even Gorsuch's allies hesitated, unsure how to salvage the image of calm authority. The tension in the room was electric, thick enough to taste. Gorsuch opened his mouth again, but the words faltered. He cited cases, precedents, principles. But each point fell flat against Jasmine's laser-focused argument. Every statistic, every legal citation, now seemed detached from the human faces that glared from the projection screen. The courtroom felt smaller, as if it were closing in on him. Jasmine's gaze didn't waver. She slowly, deliberately, tapped a few keys on her laptop. Images flickered, documents slid into view, each one a dagger aimed at his credibility. Senators leaned forward, some frowning, some whispering. For the first time, Gorsuch looked cornered, exposed. Whispers spread. Even those who rarely questioned him felt it. The defense he had relied on for decades crumbled under the weight of truth, morality, and human stories. And in that charged silence, the question loomed for everyone watching. How does one recover when the courtroom itself has turned against you? Jasmine stood tall, her gaze sweeping across the entire chamber. No robe, no bench, no title is more real than the lives we protect, she said, each word landing like a hammer on the tense silence. Every sentence carried the weight of hundreds of people she had fought for, hundreds of stories Gorsuch had overlooked. The room froze for a heartbeat, then erupted. Applause thundered off the marble walls, shaking the columns. Angela rushed forward, hugging Jasmine tightly, tears streaming down her face, while cameras captured every raw, emotional second. Gorsuch remained seated, hands gripping the edge of the bench, eyes fixed on the floor. No rebuttal, no victory gesture. His usual cold composure suddenly seemed fragile, almost exposed, under the force of truth and courage. Senators, even those who had leaned toward him, shifted uncomfortably, exchanging wary glances. The atmosphere transformed from political tension into a battle of conscience. Even the commentators on live TV were silent, caught in the intensity of the moment. Jasmine took a slow breath, letting the moment sink in. Every eye in the chamber was on her, every camera lens focused on her. Today was more than a personal victory. It was a declaration, and the question hung in the air, heavier than any words. If today was only the beginning, who would dare stand in the way of what comes next? By morning, every network was ablaze with coverage. Clips of Jasmine's closing words played on loop, her voice echoing through living rooms, bars, and crowded city streets. Polls showed a spike in public support for judicial accountability, as if the nation itself had woken up from a long sleep. Ordinary Americans appeared on camera, speaking from diners, bus stops, union halls. Some angry, some inspired, all captivated. A single mother wiped her tears while saying, "She spoke for people like me," while a young veteran nodded fiercely, fists clenched. Finally, someone who fights for us. Social media erupted. Real justice trended nationwide within hours. People shared personal stories, images of eviction notices, hospital bills, and letters to the court. Each post a testament to lives affected, each one a direct hit to the establishment's image. Commentators scrambled to keep up. Analysts debated legal implications, but nothing explained the raw energy sweeping the country. It wasn't just a court hearing anymore. It was a movement growing in real time. Every video, every clip, every retweet carried the message. The people had spoken, and their voice was unstoppable. Even politicians on both sides felt the shift. Some smiled nervously at reporters. Others whispered behind closed doors, acknowledging that the old order had lost its grip. At least for now, the nation had seen something rare. A Supreme Court challenged, exposed, and yet humbled by the courage of one determined lawyer. The question lingered on everyone's lips. If a single courtroom battle could shake the pillars of power, what might come next? The office was quiet, only the soft hum of the heater and the faint glow of the city outside. Jasmine kicked off her heels, rubbing her feet, letting herself exhale for the first time in hours. Her laptop pinged constantly. Messages from strangers, stories of struggles and survival. each one a small thunderclap of gratitude. She paused on one in particular, from a young law student. "You made me believe I could fight too." Her chest tightened, a mix of pride and the weight of responsibility settling in. For a moment, the noise of the public spectacle faded, leaving only the quiet proof that her fight had rippled far beyond the marble walls of the Capitol. A soft buzz interrupted her. A call from Angela. Hearing her voice, trembling but steady, brought it all into focus. Angela spoke of her family back home, the safety, the stability, the peace she thought was lost. Jasmine felt a surge of quiet triumph, realizing the courtroom victory wasn't just legal. It was deeply human. She leaned back, hands resting on her desk, staring out at the city lights. The applause, the headlines, the trending hashtags. They were fleeting. What mattered were the lives she had touched, the courage she had inspired, and the fire she had ignited in ordinary people to stand up for justice. In that stillness, Jasmine knew one thing. This night was not the end. It was the calm before the next storm, the pause before more battles demanded her voice, her courage, her mind, and she would be ready. The community center buzzed with energy, people leaning forward in their seats, waiting. Veterans in worn jackets, teachers with tired eyes, parents clutching children. They all wanted to see her speak. Jasmine stepped up without notes, letting her presence fill the room before she spoke. "Justice isn't a building or a title," she said, voice steady but alive. "It's the promise we keep to each other." Applause rolled through the hall like a wave, some people whistling, some quietly crying. Cameras caught faces lighting up. Veterans, parents, students, all feeling seen for the first time in a long while. Jasmine's eyes moved across the crowd, meeting a young student gripping a notebook tightly, a mother holding her baby closer, and a few veterans nodding slowly. Every glance, every tiny smile, felt like a spark. She walked among them, shaking hands, letting people tell their stories in snippets. A teacher whispered about a student who believed in fairness because of her fight. A veteran thanked her for standing up to rulings that threatened their benefits. A mother shared how her home had been saved, her voice trembling but proud. Jasmine listened quietly, absorbing every word, feeling the weight of what her work had done. Returning to the podium, she spoke again, softer this time, letting the words land. "If this was your fight," her voiceover asked, "would you stand silent?" The room grew still, the question hanging in the air, challenging everyone to think. The final card appeared on the screen, simple but bold. "Share this story." The next voice could be yours. And even as the crowd slowly filtered out, the energy lingered. Jasmine's fight wasn't over. It had just lit a spark that could reach anyone willing to stand. True power doesn't come from titles or authority, but from steadfastness and responsibility to those who rely on us. By standing up to defend justice for others, even small actions can spark meaningful change and light hope where it seemed lost. Will you choose silence, or will you have the courage to speak up and leave a positive mark on your community and future generations? If Jasmine's fight stirred something in you, don't just scroll past. Like, share, and subscribe to First Shock, where courage meets truth and voices ignite change. Hit the bell, because the next story could need your voice. Which moment hit you hardest? What would you do if it were your fight? Comment below. Your thoughts, your experience, your voice. They all matter here. This dramatized story is inspired by real struggles and real people. All characters and dialogue are fictionalized for commentary and education. It is not intended to defame or mislead, but to inspire reflection and civic awareness. Thanks for watching.